All right, so you're thinking about a trip to Cape Town, huh? Well, one question that always comes up with Cape Town, and I'm sure you've thought about it too, is it safe? Is it safe to go right now? And that's exactly what we're going to deep dive into today to give you the clarity and the confidence so you can make the best decision for your potential trip.
Yeah. And I mean, the short answer is yes. Cape Town is so incredibly popular. I mean, look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Almost 1.9 million international visitors in 2022. And I mean, people are going there. They're having good
Yeah.
experiences. So I think, that says something.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about Cape Town is it's this like super magnetic place. You've got Table Mountain, these amazing beaches, penguins. The food is incredible, but like there's this reputation for crime as well. You see the reports theft, muggings, assaults, carjackings, gang violence. It's a reality there. And a lot of that is rooted in, the historical impact of apartheid and the ongoing social inequality.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It is a city of contrast. So I think to kind of get a handle on the safety concerns, we need to zoom out a little bit. South Africa, unfortunately, does have a high homicide rate. And one way to kind of get a handle on that is to look at these rankings. There's one called Numbeo. It's the Nobilio Crime Index. And basically, it takes in user-reported data on various types of crime and assigns a score. And so if you look at their rankings for 2025, it puts things in perspective. So Cape Town have a high crime index relative to other cities globally. It's 16th, to be exact.
Yeah.
And in Africa, it's 6th. It has a crime index of 73.7. But what's really interesting is other major South African cities, Pietermaritzburg, Pretoria, Johannesburg, Durban, they actually have higher reported crime index ratings.
Okay, so it's not like Cape Town is this like outlier in South Africa when it comes
Yeah.
to the reported crime. And here's where things get interesting, especially if you're planning a trip. Because from what we've seen, crime specifically targeting tourists, it's actually pretty low.
That's right. That's a really important point. And, popular tourist areas tend to have a higher, more visible security presence. They actually have something called the South African Tourist Police. The thinking is, ensuring tourist safety is vital for the economy. So these areas tend to benefit from increased security measures. So while overall crime levels may seem high statistically, the takeaway for you if you're planning a trip is that a lot of the tourist hotspots, they do benefit from that kind of focused security. So, your risk is mitigated if you stick to those areas. Obviously, no place is 100% risk-free. But yeah, the takeaway is it's much safer than the numbers might make it seem initially if you take some precautions.
Okay, so it's this mixed picture. This amazing destination, but you've got to be smart about it. So let's get into the practical stuff. You're in Cape Town. How do you navigate it safely? Let's start with nighttime. What do you do when the sun goes down?
When the sun sets, the advice is pretty clear. Don't walk around. Crime rates tend to go up after dark. Even if it's just a short stroll, even if you're just going a few blocks, it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, and I imagine if you're used to, I don't know, scrolling around after dinner in some other cities, this might feel like a big adjustment. The recommendation is really to rely on those ride-sharing services like Uber. Uber is huge there. It's widely used. It's convenient. It's considered pretty safe. So even if it's just a couple of blocks, hop in an Uber. It's the smarter choice. And if you do find yourself needing a taxi, stick to reputable companies. And even like a little pro tip, maybe snap a photo of the driver's ID just in case, just for that extra sense of security.
Yeah, that's a good one. And, in terms of transportation, similar advice with the trains, it's just best to avoid them, especially at night. If you rent a car, that gives you flexibility. But again, Uber is often touted as a safer option and more affordable for getting around.
Okay, so I saw something about these My City buses. What about those? Are those okay?
Yeah, the My City buses are a step above the minibus taxis, which are very common in South Africa.
Yeah.
But for tourists, Uber tends to be the better option because it's just more, kind of a controlled environment. You're not in this kind of chaotic minibus situation. So it's safer, it's more comfortable, it's still pretty affordable.
Okay. So ditch the late night walks, be smart about your transportation. What about just being out and about during the day? What kind of general awareness stuff should we be thinking about?
Yeah, it's all about being hyper aware of your surroundings. That means putting those headphones away, being able to hear what's going on around you, and also just being mindful of how you're presenting yourself. Don't be flashing around expensive jewelry or designer clothes.
Yeah.
You don't want to look like a wealthy tourist.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of blend in. Don't make yourself a target. What about our phones? What about cameras? I mean, you want to capture those gorgeous views.
For sure. But be discreet. Don't have your phone or your camera out constantly. Just be quick with your photos, tuck them away. You don't want to be that person holding their phone up looking lost. It's just, inviting trouble.
Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of phones, what about navigation? I mean, we've gotten so used to relying on our phones for directions these days.
Yeah, and it's fine to use them, but just be smart about it. So, before you even leave your accommodation, familiarize yourself with the route. Do a little research on the neighborhoods you'll be walking through. And it's really important to remember areas in Cape Town can change really fast. You might go from a seemingly nice street to a more dodgy one in the space of a few minutes. So if you're walking and you get a bad feeling about an area, trust your gut. Don't hesitate to turn back. And when you are using your phone for directions, try to be discreet.
Mm.
Don't stand on a street corner staring at your map. Just walk with purpose and glance at your phone quickly when you need to.
Okay, so plan ahead, be aware, trust your gut. Good advice. Now, what about keeping your valuables safe from, pickpockets and things like that?
Yeah, it's a good idea to get a money belt and wear it under your clothes. It keeps your valuables close, out of sight. Pickpocketing does happen, so a money belt is a great way to protect yourself. Also, be mindful of your bag. Keep it close to you, keep it secure. Don't leave it hanging off your shoulder where someone could easily snatch it. And when it comes to ATMs, try to use ones that are located inside shopping malls or banks. They tend to be more secure. And actually, speaking of money, it's a good idea to minimize how much cash you're carrying. Try to pay with a card whenever possible, and even when you're paying with a card, keep an eye on it. Make sure they're not doing anything fishy with it. At your hotel or wherever you're staying, use the safe or the lockers for your valuables. And finally, common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do this when someone knocks on your door. Verify who it is before you open it.
Good reminders. Good reminders. What about talking to strangers? Are there any red flags we should be watching out for? Any scams we should know about?
Yeah, there are a few things to watch out for. So there have been reports of fake tourist police. They try to extort money from tourists. So if someone approaches you claiming to be an officer and something feels off, just be very wary. At the airport, if someone offers to help you with your luggage without you asking, politely decline. And be aware of homeless individuals. Now, most of them are harmless, but some might be pushy or they might try to follow you. If someone tries to direct you to an ATM, that's a big red flag. It's often a tactic used in scams. And finally, be wary of tour guide scams. If a tour guide approaches you with a deal that seems too good to be true, it probably is.
So that's a lot to be aware of. What if, despite all these precautions, we do find ourselves in a robbery situation? What's the best course of action?
Look, the advice is very clear on this. Do not resist. The vast majority of fatalities during robberies happen when the victim tries to fight back. Your safety is paramount.
Yeah.
Material possessions can be replaced. Your life cannot. So this isn't just a suggestion. It's really for your own well-being to remember that your life is more valuable than anything you're carrying.
Yeah, really important to remember that. Okay, let's talk about driving. A lot of people rent a car to explore the areas around Cape Town. What are some safety things to keep in mind when you're behind the wheel?
First off, always keep your car doors locked when you're driving and keep valuables out of sight in the boot. Carjacking is a real problem in some areas. And actually be extra cautious at red traffic lights. Smash and grabs happen there. Carjackings happen there. Some locals even talk about running red lights at quiet intersections to avoid that risk. But obviously that comes with its own danger, so you've got to be super aware. And whatever you do, never leave anything visible in a parked car. That's just asking for trouble. And when you're parking your car, especially if it's overnight, check with your accommodation about the safest parking options. They'll usually have secure parking, or they can point you in the right direction.
All right, so let's say you want to get out into nature. Hiking around Table Mountain sounds amazing, right? But are there any safety considerations there?
Hiking is amazing, but it's not without its risks. There have been reports of attacks on hiking trails, so it's not advisable to hike alone. Always let someone know your planned route and your expected return time. And if you can, hike in a group. There's safety in numbers. And do a little research on the specific trail you're planning to hike. Some trails have a higher incidence of muggings than others. Avoid hiking alone on trails that aren't well maintained or after dark. And consider joining a guided hiking tour with a local expert or connect with a hiking group. It's safer, and you might even make some new friends along the way. And one last thing about hiking, especially on Table Mountain, be prepared for sudden changes in weather. Conditions can shift really fast, so it's important to be ready for anything.
Okay, good advice. What about for our solo female travelers out there? Anything specific they should be aware of?
Yeah, solo female travelers, definitely take some extra precautions. It's best to avoid walking alone at night, even after sunset. If you need to get somewhere, use a taxi that's arranged by your accommodation, or book it through a reputable app. Connecting with other travelers can be a great way to share tips, maybe even find some buddies to do some activities with. And when you are walking, project confidence. Walk with purpose. And always let someone know where you're going and when you expect to be back. Overall, just be super aware of your surroundings at all times.
Good advice.
So we've talked a lot about what not to do. Let's switch gears and talk about where to be. Are there any areas that are generally considered safer for tourists?
Yeah, for sure. There are definitely some areas that are considered safer, mainly because they have a stronger security presence and they're just generally more tourist-friendly. The V&A waterfront is a great example. It's very tourist-focused. It's got limited road access, CCTV surveillance, security patrols. It's a pretty safe environment. Clifton and Camps Bay, those are the beaches, very popular with families. They tend to be pretty safe as well, and they have good transport links. The City Bowl is another good one. It's got a nice artsy vibe, lots of small businesses. Generally okay during the day, but I've heard some reports of higher crime levels at night in certain parts. False Bay, especially areas like Muizenberg and Fishhook, is supposed to be super safe. It's got a very suburban feel. A lot of expats live there, and it's supposed to be a really comfortable area to explore. Even trendy areas like Bree Street and Kloof Street in the Central Business District, those can be fine. But just be mindful that some of the surrounding areas might be a bit less secure.
Okay, so on the flip side, are there any areas that tourists should just avoid? No-go zones?
Definitely. The Cape Flats, avoid it. High crime, gang activity, not a place for tourists. Longa and Yanga, those are townships.
Yeah.
Historically very significant, offer cultural experiences, but they also have relatively high crime rates. Kraaifontein is another area that has a really high crime rate. If you're interested in exploring the townships, it's best to go with a local guide or someone who knows the area well. Don't go venturing out on your own.
Got it. So for our solo travelers out there, besides being extra vigilant, are there any specific tips for choosing accommodation or activities?
Yeah, if you're traveling solo, definitely choose your accommodation wisely. Hostels are a great option. Look for ones with good reviews, a social atmosphere, a safe and central location. They're a great way to meet people, and you'll often find they organize tours and activities that are safe and fun. And just in general, listen to the locals. They know the city best, and they'll have the most up-to-date information on safety. And always let someone know your plans for the day, where you're going, when you expect to be back.
So we've painted a picture of Cape Town, right? An incredible place, but with some real safety concerns. We started off by saying crime against tourists is pretty low. Can we unpack that a bit more? Give some context.
Yeah, it's important to remember that while South Africa's overall crime statistics are high, and Cape Town does rank as one of the more dangerous cities in Africa, a sixth, in fact, in early 2025, according to those rankings we talked about earlier, the incidence of crimes specifically targeting tourists are relatively low. But, and this is a big but, that doesn't mean it's risk-free. It means that by being vigilant, by following all the safety advice we've talked about, you can really reduce your risk. It's all about making smart choices, being aware of your surroundings. You can have an amazing trip to Cape Town. Just be prepared.
So the bottom line is, Cape Town can be an amazing destination, but go in with your eyes open, be prepared, use common sense, stay aware, avoid risky situations, choose your transportation wisely, and you'll have an incredible time. And if you can, get some advice from locals. They'll have the most up-to-date info. But remember, situations can change, so do your own research before you go.
Absolutely. It's all about being informed and taking sensible precautions.
Well, thanks for breaking all that down for us. Really gives a clear picture of what to expect.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
And to you, our listener, thinking of that Cape Town trip, we hope this deep dive has given you what you need to plan a safe and unforgettable experience.
Safe travels.
And on that note,
Until next time.
we'll catch you on the next deep dive. As you're planning, maybe think about this. How do perceptions of safety differ so much from place to place? And what role do our own travel experiences play in shaping those perceptions?
Something to ponder.
For sure. All right, until next time.
See you.